All right, so welcome back into the metaverse. Today we're going to be jumping into one of the Gala game leads that really kind of focuses, I think, on being, I would say, one of the top games within the Gala ecosystem. We'll dive into all of that good stuff. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Metaverse Insider. Joining me today is Michael McCarthy of none other than Mirandus. Great to have you on the show, Michael.
Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, excellent. So we are going to learn a lot about Mirandus, the ideas behind it, kind of the evolution of where you guys have come from, but also a lot of the intricacies around the game itself. So how you can, earn, how you can play, some of the hacks, so to speak, of really what a great Mirandus player is going to look like and be like. Let's get into, first of all, sometimes we have brand new people getting into our show for the very first time. And typically, what happens here is they're learning about blockchain gaming. And
Mm.
for a newbie that's first getting into understanding Mirandus and just what's happening in the Gala ecosystem, kind of give me a rundown of Mirandus itself.
Yeah, Mirandus is a classic MMO adventure. It's a fantasy adventure. Features things that people are excited about and familiar with, like dwarves and orcs and elves. Um, I'd say some of the key differentiators and why I think Mirandus is different and special is that we are creating this world as a secret. We are trying to bring back true adventure. So players are all going to get to start in the same location. We're not going to tell anyone what is in this world, and it's up to players to explore and unlock its secrets.
Very cool. There's a lot to it in terms of both exploration, but also the design themes. I saw also the art generation is just amazing. So you guys have done a great job with it. Kind of curious, you've been a 25-year veteran of the game industry. Obviously, you're new into blockchain gaming because obviously blockchain gaming hasn't been around that long. How and what was the process for you as a game developer to say, hey, this might be the future where gaming is going? What was your kind of your decision tree of making a move into building Mirandus itself?
Yeah, it was way before Mirandus. I We started to ask questions. I think we didn't we weren't trying to say, hey, let's be a blockchain company at Gala. We just started to ask the question, if players are working so hard and they're spending their time, energy, and money playing every game in the space, could they own something? How could they actually own the things they're working so hard to get inside the game? What would that look like? And the only way, and I think the best way to ensure that players can truly own their own content is using blockchain technology.
Yeah.
Blockchain is just a very elegant. It's an elegant piece of code, is what I like to say. And I think people that are new to blockchain don't really understand how what an incredible revolution it is and how it changes everything. To be playing a game and to own something is not the game developer's little server, dark server
Right.
somewhere where we're saying you own something, and we can take it away from you at any time. It actually lives on a network outside
Hmm.
of our system that players completely control. And I think the first time that you have the experience of truly owning something on chain and giving it to your friend outside of the game, you don't need to be
Yeah.
playing something to give it to somebody. It's just yours to do with what you please. We call it the cartridge. In the early days of gaming, you had a cartridge. You would pay the
Yep.
money, and you got that cartridge, and that game was yours. So somewhere along the way, we've kind of lost that in gaming. People just they log in and they want to play, and a database somewhere is telling you what you own or not, and you don't control it. They can take it away from you at any time. So we just wanted to empower people to truly own their own content, and blockchain is the best technology for it.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Well, I think to your point is when you look at gamers out there, and I talk to a lot of them, have two of my own kids that have really starting to come up in the gaming side of things, where they really are starting to pay attention to how games are built, how the economies work within these games. And now they're just exploring into kind of the idea behind blockchain, very young. And one thing that is already evident in just early game players, when you watch and understand how all this comes together, to your point, the idea of that first experience of truly owning something within the game itself, an NFT, I think it really is eye-opening. And I do believe this is going to be the future. Obviously, it's one of the reasons we've launched this entire side of our business around metaverse and gaming, what this might be. So I would agree with you 100%. Let's talk about platforms for a minute, because that's typically, it's the gateway into most gamers' hearts. Many people, whether you're on a Switch or a Nintendo, or if you're on an Xbox, whatever it might be, many people all kind of will go in the vein of that particular platform for the kind of games they're going to end up playing. How and what do you see in terms of a strategy for blockchain gaming, but especially Mirandus, for being released on in terms of platforms?
So an MMO, especially one that's going to look as beautiful as ours, just really requires, a decent gaming
PC.
rig. So
Yeah.
we develop on PC, and that's usually where it all starts. And then what happens is, getting to Mac is not too difficult to get to. When you start looking at other platforms for a game like Mirandus, it does start to become difficult depending on the specs of that particular device.
Hmm.
So, we're typically a PC game, you would say, but we do have a lot of thoughts and kind of plans for how to enable you to be able to play on the go or engage in the world in some way, maybe with a
Okay.
companion app on a mobile device. For blockchain games in general, there's nothing saying it has to be PC. It could be
Right.
it could be on any device, as long as the people hosting that platform are okay with empowering people to own their own content. And
Yeah.
that's really a bit of a challenge out there. Uh, we have our own network where you can tap and install and play, and we've built that so that we can let players control their own fate and destiny. But other places that you might want to release your game on, depending on their terms of service, might not be as open. So I think, just like you're noticing with your children, I see it with mine, and I think we're having the experience here at Gala. Once you start playing a game that lets you own something, you expect
Yeah.
that, and it
Yeah.
starts to feel very strange to play any other game. So
For sure. And you're right. I think it is. I think it'll be a matter of time before we do start to see other ecosystems start to realize what's happening in gaming. Now, is it, a few years, 5 years down the road, really kind of the evolution of gaming, I think, is going to depend on the kind of hardware and integration we see into more immersive environments, which will be fun, because I think blockchain is pretty much leading the way in that area, or it has at least, I think, one of the leading positions for what the future of AR VR might look like. And also, even from a 2D aspect, there's going to be just, I think, a big leap forward in terms of graphics, the implementation of how games are structured, economies, all that kind of stuff, which we're already seeing with things that you guys are doing. Let's talk about players now. And if you look at the size of a server or the capacity of a game to be able to really onboard and have a large number of active players, what is the framework for Mirandus? How big can this go? And what's the plan for growth on being able to bring in as many players as possible?
yeah, so a few things there. One, this building Mirandus isn't just something that we're trying to do. We do it with our community. We're on Discord a lot, and we take a lot of their cues. And it's a bit of all of our dreams kind of in one. So, first off, everyone wants to be in the same world. And we've talked about that a lot with our fans. Normally, when you play an MMO, what they will do is you start with a server selector. There could be 20, 30,
Hmm.
40 servers. And where are your friends? And, it becomes a bit confusing. And they do that to reduce global latency typically. And they do that because you can only have a certain number of players on a server. So it's a
Right.
bit of a technical challenge for us, but we want it to be one world. There is Mirandus, and everyone in the world can play it at the same time. Um, as far as the total number of players that the world ultimately can support, that is infinite. There is
Hmm.
no cap. We are saying that you must have an exemplar to play, and an exemplar is an avatar. It's an elf. It's
Right.
an orc. It's a dwarf, and we have made 50,000 of those. So what's going to happen is that those 50,000 exemplar owners, they will be the first ones that get to experience the world of Mirandus. And blockchain enables some other really incredible things that you wouldn't find elsewhere, which is, let's say you own an exemplar, but you don't really want to play with it, or maybe you own 10 of them and you only want to play with one. You can actually rent those exemplars out to other people. So while there might be 50,000 concurrent people walking around the world, the number of people who might be out renting those exemplars and playing, you know, could be absolutely infinite.
Yeah. Interesting aspect there too, because I think you're right with the aspect of how NFTs and gameplay attributes will start to flow into other use case scenarios, utility aspect, just like you mentioned, in terms of being able to maybe rent them or, in essence, kind of create somewhat of a stable. We've obviously seen things like that happen with Axie and other early games in the space. And I think that's going to become kind of its own economy for sure. When you look at that,
Scares.
go ahead.
I was going to say that, one of the things that blockchain enables too, that I think regular gamers might not be familiar with, is scarcity.
Yeah.
One of the things we loved about releasing our exemplars was we made 1,000 elves, and that's it. There's only ever going to be 1,000 elves in the
Hmm.
game. That's really cool. That's really exciting, and it feels more like being in Lord of the Rings, where it's a bit of a moment to see many elves walking around together, and we think that's kind of fun and cool.
I loved the array there too. We just had it up on screen. Kind of feels like it's kind of the EDC, the everyday carry of what you can have for your own exemplar in all the different tools and things that you can utilize within the game. So, pretty creative. Is there a plan to ever go with a free to play here? Anything going in that direction?
Yeah, I free to play is an interesting one. This has been a question that's come up a lot. Free to play games typically mean there's no subscription model,
Hmm.
meaning you don't have to pay $10 a month to play. You can just jump in and play, and that's what
Right.
Mirandus is targeting. We're not going to have a subscription model. So you need an exemplar to play, or you need to rent an exemplar for the foreseeable future. But there's no monthly cost associated with it. So in that way, it is free to play. You need to have an exemplar to jump in the world.
Well, and that becomes somewhat of an asset too. So it is something that overall is going to have value at the end of the day in terms of the ecosystem. So in essence, it could be, completely free to play, or possibly even pay you in the future. All right, so let's get into the land ecosystem, kind of the structure of property inside Miranda's. Deeds, 99% sold. Buildings, 99% sold. 88% of ships are sold. Docks, 80%, and then items, about half sold. First of all, will there be more? And explain how these work within the game. How can I obtain them? What's the process?
Yeah. So what we do is, so deeds are essentially a stamp of the town that you can place. So in every zone, we have places where your deed can be located, and that's based
Hmm.
on the size of the deed. We kind of prepare the land for that deed to be placed. Once the deed is placed, the person who owns the deed can rent out spots within his town to building owners. Those building owners can lease that spot and use that to, be a little bit of a base, have it be their storefront. It's where they craft, and it's where players can walk in and buy cool stuff. So the world of Mirandus does not start with a bunch of cities that people go to. It is a blank slate, and what players equip and how they survive and where they sleep and where they eat will all be controlled by the deed owners and building owners who wanted to establish a town in that particular zone.
All right, so this is where you can go in and build how so our like the tavern concept that I've seen within the game. Is that something that would go in on your deed as maybe a potential use case?
Yeah, yeah. So you would place a deed, and there wouldn't be any buildings on it, and a tavern owner could come along and be like, "Well, I like this spot, and I like the terms
Yeah,
that this deed owner has set, so I'm going to place my tavern here." And then
set it
people
up.
who are adventuring nearby would like it. They might have a favorite tavern in a favorite city they like to go to, and they meet up there with their friends. And one of the things that I think is really cool about Mirandus that our community has been, um, they've been real upfront about is that they don't just want to walk around and slaughter things. They like the idea that they can live in a bit of a medieval world full of adventure. So
Yeah,
they want to craft, they want to farm, they want to hang out with their friends, and they really want this to be a bit of a universe. And I think that's what we all that's what we all want. That's a bit of the dream
sure.
of the team and what it is we're trying to create. So we're trying to, imagine you teleported instantly, magically to a fantasy world like a Lord of the Rings adventure,
Hmm.
and you just appeared in the forest. What would you do? Where would you go? And that's the picture we're trying to paint, and that's what we're developing. So
Yeah.
we love it and we're excited about it.
Okay, so within this, because there seems to be some innovation that's building within the ecosystems themselves, almost like these cottage industries that are and could be building within it. I guess within the fact that someone has a deed, they want to put a tavern in there or they want to use it for other use cases, and then the ability for them to do other things within that. How far do you see in terms of creativity? Is this kind of an unlimited opportunity in terms of ideas of what could be instituted within those assets inside the game itself? What kind of use cases have you seen so far?
Yeah, I think so. In the old school days of the role playing games we made, they were non-linear, and we weren't
Hmm.
telling people what to do. We were setting the stage, and that's really how we see Mirandus. You're setting the stage, and what players do within it, we can speculate on, but we won't know for sure until they're in there. How do
Yeah,
they want to approach this world? And we've seen I've had some wonderful talks at some of our Galaverse events
yeah,
with players who have ideas about what they want to do in the world. And one of my
yeah,
favorite ones was somebody had bought all the dwarves. They're trying to corner the market, take all the dwarves, and they want to own mining. They want
yeah,
to control the economy from like an iron ore standpoint. And that if you have steel in the game, it was likely what them and their guild have forged or provided. And I think that's exciting. That's really exciting. So this is a game where the stage is set,
yeah.
and what happens from there is really up to players, and it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think the openness of how blockchain games are being built around this kind of concept, and I think it's also we don't know what we don't know just yet because of the evolution, and also just the creativity of players is going to, like you just mentioned, just in terms of market condition type of scenarios, different types of use case and utility that'll most likely be implemented to maybe in real life extensions, which I think are going to be very intriguing as we start to see this because we already see a big kind of micro economy. If you just think the growth of Comic Con and just how it has become such a place and such a definitive part of culture, I think blockchain gaming could have those kinds of extensions out there. So definitely what you guys are doing could definitely lead in that direction. Let's talk about what powers Mirandus, obviously, and that being Materium, ERC20, the fuel of Mirandus. Explain it also. Have you looked at other potential multi-chain application uses outside of Ethereum itself, or are you looking at other, or are you kind of centering in on just going this direction?
No, we at Gala we have our own blockchain technology that we've been developing. It is for games to exist on the Ethereum network is just too much of a challenge,
Yeah,
especially if you think of a game like Mirandus. If I walk up to you in the game and I hand you a dagger, that's a wallet to wallet transaction. That is me
right.
owning it,
Yeah,
and it is to you. So we are building our own technology that is going live this year, and it's going to enable millions of transactions with sub 2-3 second. We've seen transaction times and extremely low gas, negligible gas costs of any kind. So you really have to build that, and you have to have that technology if you want to have any sort of traditional game models.
Yeah.
Materium is, can be an ERC20. It is right now. And that can be taken in and out of our network to the Ethereum chain. And that's how things are. So, they'll be on our network. That's what you'll be playing it with. And if you want to take anything outside our network and trade it as an ERC20 or an ERC 1155, that's your business. It's yours. You own it. We couldn't stop you if we wanted to.
Yeah. So I think that's, obviously one of the kind of the openness of how blockchain gaming will really kind of evolve. Do you see, I guess in the essence of how game developers are really building right now, do you see more people kind of going in this direction of kind of trying to do what Gala has done in terms of building its own blockchain? Or do you feel like there's going to be more growth within these ecosystems or in these sub sections within the Ethereum network themselves?
I I think that's just too difficult to even speculate on. This is a new world, really. No one has
Mhm.
has quite the recipe or blueprint, and I think Gala is, I think from a DNA standpoint, what we're trying to do is empower people and empower content creators. We've got Gala Film, we have Gala Music, we have,
Right.
we have a lot of initiatives that are trying to just connect people together, and connect them to the artists and creators. So you know we're open about that, and as time goes on and technology changes, if there's opportunities again to empower our people more and the people that love our network, we would take them and absolutely explore
Sure.
it. I think the traditional model is being insular and trying to have your thing, grasp everything
Hmm.
like an evil business monster. um, but we love what we do and we're proud of it because of what we're doing for people. I think that's kind of the soul and the spirit behind it. So we're,
Yeah.
we're very open to other technologies.
You guys obviously do a great job with graphics. It seems to be one of the cornerstones of just the game itself in terms of development. But this I've also found with a lot of games within the Gala ecosystem. When you think about that, of being able to level up into just superior graphic and gameplay and the creativity of what that all comes together, do you think that is now table stakes for blockchain gaming, or do you think this is something that we'll continue to see kind of these, I would call them entry level style games that still have some time to go in terms of design themes? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think has the bar been raised enough now to where all blockchain gaming is going to go this direction?
I think if you're talking about the quality of content, it's 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 difficult. It's a skill. It's a trade skill. Making games
Yeah.
is blacksmithing to me in many ways. And there are people out there who are absolutely insanely good at making things beautiful, engineering things in the right way.
Yeah.
Um, so it's blockchain is just a technology that I don't think people are really going to think about or discuss as time goes on. And the reason blockchain games are starting to look better is I just think you're getting a lot more traditional game development,
Right.
experts and craftsmen who are excited by the mission. Um, it's cool and it feels right to let people own their own stuff, and I think you're just going to see more and more of it. And because of that, better people are getting involved. Um,
Yeah.
so
So hey,
graphically, and I think we focus on AAA stuff a lot. We say, oh, AAA, or you know, I think if you look throughout time and history, some of the greatest games ever didn't have the best graphics in the world. It was just
mhm,
such a good game. So I think things will certainly get prettier over time, and we'll start to see things looking better. But it's very possible that the super mega awesome blockchain game that we all want, or that's going to be out there 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, might not have the best graphics in the world, but it'll be
yeah, it all comes
cool.
down to the gameplay for sure at the end.
Again,
Uh, Talk to me about the beta release. What's the timeline for that right now?
So this year has been about foundational tech, and game development goes very slow in the beginning, and then it just gets crazy fast. So once you build the foundational tech, you have something you can stand on. And what we wanted to do this year is be positive that we had an architecture that was going to support the vision. One world, you can, no matter where you log in the world, you can play. We want, we want hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the same zone. And it's not just people. You also have AI running creatures and bots.
Mm-hmm.
So you stand up the foundational tech and you start to pound on that a little bit, and then you just extend the content. So it's our desire that next year we have quite a large number of zones and dungeons that players could do and explore. So I'd like to see us in beta, if you will, next year. Towards the end of next year is what I would like
Okay.
to see. And what is very difficult about being blockchain is, when do you flip the switch? And that's what we call it. We call it
Right.
flipping the switch. In a traditional game, you can tune around anything. And because you can claw things back, you can have bugs, and we're pushing a fix for that. And that's what you see every day when you log into an MMO. Here's the changes we made. With blockchain, we have to be really careful. We can't have certain bugs that
Mm-hmm.
certain exploits be in the game. So everything has to be tested very, very thoroughly before we can flip that switch and say, okay, now everyone come into this world, and when you kill this creature, there might be a rare drop of a ruby, but you're not accidentally going to get 10,000 rubies. Oops, we have a tuning error. So you know that moment where you flip the switch and players can come in and everything is living on chain and they're owning their own content is a big moment, and we're going to have to do a lot of testing before we get there.
Yeah,
So I would
for sure.
see, I could see it absolutely being, um, you know 6 months or more of just that kind of integration and testing. So
Last question to you before we get into some questions from the audience. And just as a reminder for the audience, just drop your questions in on the sidebar. We'll try to get to as many as we can here with Michael. But when you look at the market as a whole, because there was a big rush toward the last part of last year. We saw a tremendous amount of blockchain games being built, or at least I shouldn't say being built, being conceptualized and being invested in from within the investment community. Some of those have really stalled. We've started to continue to see more build in some of the cornerstone blockchain games. But I guess the question to you is, how quickly do you think we'll see traditional game studio makers moving into this space, much like you have, where we will see a larger industry impact overall?
I think I'm trying to put a different hat on here for a second. What I mean is, if you are in a traditional gaming sector or a major publisher out there, um, you have to envision what it looks like to get a game greenlit for production, even at all. You're
Right,
walking into a room full of people who are going to give you millions and millions and millions of dollars and a team and time to develop something. And it typically starts with a vision or a PowerPoint of what you want to build. And oftentimes
right,
it needs to include a revenue model.
sure,
So I think until there are more games in the space, um, that somebody can point to and say, hey, it's going to be like this. It's just hard to do that pitch inside a major publisher or publicly traded company. I think the people that you're seeing in the space now are the mavericks, are the pioneers, and are the people who are willing to jump in and go for it because it's just the right thing to do. Players
yeah,
should be able to own their own content. It's way overdue. So I think Gala's leading the way there for sure. And we have we have close to 30 games, I think, in
Hmm.
development. We have a monstrous lineup, and you'll start
Yeah,
to
I
see
was
those.
surprised. I was
Yeah.
surprised at how many had under development. Last time I talked with Sarah Buxton, she was giving kind of just some of the update on it, and I was intrigued with that. I know we're going to have Jason on from Gala on soon to talk about some of the game growth. So for sure, and then obviously what you see here on screen is kind of just the current uh, labels that are
There's quite a few.
are on Gala so far.
Yeah, there's quite a few that are unannounced.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean,
going to be
and
interesting.
and I think too when you're looking at these, when you look at those games in production too, it's the developers themselves are want this as well. It's
Yeah.
not just the major publishers who are interested, maybe the revenue model. It's the people. Like I can't explain to you how different the energy is in this space than in a traditional gaming space. And developers love coming to Gala. They love coming to this network because as a game maker, you're a painter, you're
Yeah.
making music, and at some point you're showing it to people, and you're kind of biting your nails hoping they love it. So I think there's a far deeper connection between developers and the people that play their games than people might expect. And people who love making games love that they're giving it to people to play, and that respect that you have for your players leads you to blockchain almost instantly. It's just a
Yeah. Well, and there's so much of that. I think throughout blockchain in general, we're seeing that. We see it in the media side. We see it in a lot of other projects in general. We are seeing a complete new dynamic of the people that are involved because it's usually very mission-oriented people that have a huge dynamic understanding of not only tech but also culture, and that's super important as we start to see the development. I think not only of blockchain gaming but entertainment, music, all that. I think will really play a big part. We're going to take some questions here, Michael, to jump into some of these. And I don't know if the guys have a poll. Do we have a poll coming up here? Looks like we do. Yeah. All right. So, what aspect of Mirandus would you be most intrigued by? So, land ownership, deed, exploration, and gameplay kind of leads the place there, and then earning Materium and crafting and selling items. So, interesting. So, exploration and gameplay, which kind of leads into what you were talking about earlier, of really kind of that exploratory theme that you guys have set the kind of this tone for. It appears that that seems to be one of the big one for players.
no, it
That's a
means a
good thing.
lot to me. Yeah, that really means a
You're on
lot
the
to me.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and again, we're building this game with the community and involving them, and every step of the way, and showing them works in progress and things that you would never get to see. I'm get quoted a lot as saying how the sausage is made, and the community, gets to just see what it
Yeah.
looks like.
I like
The
it.
good parts, the bad parts, but it's the exploration part of the game. I think is what appeals to me most, and I think players who like the concept of a role playing game or an MMO. So
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
really wonderful to see. The team loves it too, right? It's imagine being let loose in a world, just teleported there, and it's yours to
Yeah.
explore. So we
Yeah.
love that idea. We want that, and I think our community wants that, and that's neat to see it reflected in the poll.
Here's a question from Paintball for Life. Will there be any use for the Gala token in Mirandus?
Yeah, you know I like the idea. So we have Materium, and Materium is woven into everything in the game. It's magic. It's mana. It allows you to cast spells. If you die, in order to make this a real adventure, death needs to have significant penalties, and you can come back to life without those penalties. But you'll have to use a little bit of magic and Materium to
Hmm.
come back without that penalty. If you want to craft something and you don't have all the ingredients, it's Materium. So magical acts all require Materium. It's woven into every game system we have. I like the idea that if we had gold in the game, that it's Gala.
Mm. Yeah,
I,
that would
I,
be
I think. I
interesting.
mean,
Yeah.
I just. I think Gala is an incredible coin, and I think it's neat to say that it's the gold of the land, the coins
Yeah.
of the land. So
That's a good
you
good
know,
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So games evolve, and you always have to make the right decision. It becomes very tricky from a game development standpoint in certain economies to um, your instinct is to spin up your own coin of the land, if you will, because
Hmm.
you can control that economy a little bit better, and you can keep things as an integer instead of a float. Essentially,
Yep.
it becomes
Yep.
strange if I walk into a store and I'm buying something for 3.065923 of a coin. So you try to spin
Exactly.
up, so it's nice when you can keep things as, 1, 2, 3, 100, 400, and keep things as a bit of an integer. So I
Yeah.
like the idea of it being Gala, depending on, if that works for us from an economy and game
Cool.
standpoint. To me,
So
that feels like the
maybe
cleanest thing to do.
maybe the token coming to Mirandus soon. We'll see. Scott Provost. Okay, so if there is a fixed amount of exemplars and you have more people who want to play, the amount who can play is limited? Question. Is that the way it works if there is a fixed ecosystem?
It's So 50,000 exemplars exist, and you do need to play with one of those or rent one for the foreseeable future. And what we've talked about before, and we've talked to the community about this too. Um, we don't want Mirandus to end. We're just going to continue to develop it and develop it and develop it and expand the land size. And would there be a moment in time where the land is just so big it starts to feel empty and strange if we don't have more people in there? And if that moment comes, then yeah, we would release more avatars
Okay.
to people to ensure a larger population. But it is you have to have an exemplar to play for the foreseeable future for years and years.
Yeah. Can you talk? This is coming from Make Sense, I believe. Yeah. Can you talk about taverns? We actually had a chart up earlier that showed a list of the tavern levels, I guess. Explain
Yeah,
a little bit about how that ecosystem works.
yeah. So taverns are really cool. Well, one of the things that again our community really wants is they want to be able to head back to the tavern and play a game. So we're developing this big MMO, and they take years to develop. But prior to a full release of an MMO, can we create a place for players to start to get together and play games? And
Right.
once the game is fully launched, they'll have those same games available to them. So what you saw in that list and that video that was showing some of the tavern stuff, that's an internal thing we use to previs experiences.
Mm,
Those
okay.
taverns that you saw on that list would be player-owned taverns, and the idea here
Right.
is that what if players who own taverns right now could host games that others could play in? They could name their tavern. Players could have a favorite tavern, um, and they could host games. That's kind of the idea and the spirit of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think about the IRL aspect or the utility aspect of having access into that tavern through the game itself. Interesting on, just creativity wise. I saw somewhere, I think it was one of the video clips that you guys had sent us, where it looked like a chessboard that had some of the Mirandus exemplars within it as pieces. What explain that? Well, because that was within a game. I think it was within a tavern.
Yeah, yeah. So again, these are just kind of concepts and little sketches that we throw together internally to see what would this look or would this feel like. So we're going to be
Ah,
developing
okay.
a series of games for the tavern, and one of the ideas that we've had that we think is really fun is imagine looking down at a game board and it feels physical. It's candlelit, the pieces are made of wood,
Yeah.
but through the power of Materium, could they come to life and move around?
Hmm.
Imagine a bit of a battle chess, if you will, and your Mirandus
Yep. Yep.
Vox characters could walk around and kill other little wooden Vox characters on the scene. So we utility for us is just so important, and we want to enable people who've supported our product and the deeds and buildings and exemplar owners and Mirandus Vox owners. We want to get them utility as fast as possible. So launching kind of a tavern game experience is a way to get everyone into the game before the larger MMO is released. And we think that's going to be really cool.
A couple of good questions here. One coming from Bearbank. Can we share our exemplars or rent them out maybe in fractional day parts? So I'm working, so just rent it for the day. I come home at night, I can still play.
Yeah, yeah. I think the
Time
idea
zones could
behind
come
this
into that.
exemplar, renting an exemplar is it's a free market. We're not
All right.
going to control that very much. We would just leave that up to the exemplar owners to choose what their terms are for that rental, and
Yeah.
let the people who want to rent decide if they like that deal or not. So yeah, one of the things that came up, the past day or two that I really liked was this thought that, gosh, I play all the time and I love it, game, but I am going on vacation for a couple weeks and I won't be able to play. Perfect time to put your exemplar up there, let somebody else rent it for a couple weeks, and then when you get back, it's yours again. So if it's a fraction of the day, I think we would allow you to set those terms. Might be hard to find someone who wants to go for it, but because I
Well,
mean, I think
hey,
you want it for a few days, I think, at least,
yeah,
you want
yeah,
really
exactly. Well,
yes.
you get hooked in. That's the thing. You'll get hooked into the game, and that's when it gets hard because at that point it's like, oh, wait a minute, I got to give this up. It's like giving up your Switch to your brother or sister, and you're in the middle of it. There's no way you're about to give that thing up. Not a chance. I have to deal with that every day. So anyway, last question for you, and that is VR, Mirandus VR. We're looking at VR, AR applications now coming from a lot of different industries. Any plans for this in the Mirandus ecosystem?
Our goal with Mirandus is to create the most immersive and physical experience we can. We're trying to make you feel like you are there. So when we looked at VR, it's super compelling and amazing.
Yeah,
So we love it, and we love the idea. It's just the technology is not far enough along at this point for us to
yeah,
pin the development on it. Um, but we have made some design decisions that keep that door open. I think that's what's really critical to us. Like, for instance, we are first person. It's a lot easier to flip that switch to VR when you're a first person game.
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So we've kept that door open, and we're super excited about the technology. We just all internally, as developers, have had the experience of putting the goggles on, and oh my God, this is amazing. Then 45 minutes go by, an hour goes by. It's a little sweaty, it's disconcerting that I can't see around me, and it just starts to become it's a little cumbersome still. So
Yeah,
we love the
it
idea.
needs it needs some runway, that's for sure. I think
It's
just
getting
in yeah, it is getting. I mean, if you think about just the evolution that we've had in the last 3 years, imagine another 3 year leap because it's just going to compound in terms of the tech that's being used. So it'll be
one of our guys.
interesting to watch.
I was gonna say one of the guys on the team had a really great idea, which is, what if we did a side project that allowed you to be in VR just in a tavern? I thought that
Oh,
was
okay.
a really neat idea. So, if you're doing an entire game, it gets very complex because a lot of it, how you interact with the game, what a UI looks like, what the control system is, what if you can't see your keyboard anymore? To do that is a major undertaking. But I loved the idea of a VR tavern. That wouldn't be too hard to do, and that'd be fun.
Yeah, for sure. Michael McCarthy from Mirandus, great to have you on the show today. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to be watching close. We've got to get you guys back on as things start to roll out for sure. But thanks for
Well,
stopping
thank you
in.
so much for having me.
You bet. All right, so you guys are listening in over on the podcast right now. Love it. Give us some stars over there because the podcast side of our show is absolutely exploding. So thank you so much for all that. But the real place to catch all of this, especially when it gets into the game topics, when we talk to game devs, and when we also dive into the mechanics of how economies work within blockchain gaming, you need to see this. You need to experience it. And to do that, you've got to jump over to YouTube. Make sure and just search Paul Barron Network. You'll find us. We do a ton of crypto videos on TechPath. And then we really dive deep here on the metaverse within Metaverse Insiders. So all you have to do, search over there, like and subscribe on a few videos. We'll be right in your feed. You'll catch these live streams, get a chance to ask questions, all that good stuff. And guess what? The last thing is you can do, jump into the Diamond Circle. That's where you have a direct tether line to us. We drop a couple of emails a week, give you all kinds of our updates, whether it's on metaverse, gaming, all sorts of the lead blue chip token projects over on TechPath. All of that's right there. It's absolutely free. If you guys want to reach me, it's out on Twitter at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on Metaverse Insider.